I would like to call to order the November 8th meeting of the Village of Wesley Chapel Council. You will rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I think I know what it's
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and pray with me, please. Lord God, we just pause to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us this night together. Thank you for this village, for this country, for the people that defend our freedom. Lord, we just say thank you for all the things you've blessed us with. And we ask that throughout this meeting, the thoughts, the words, the actions that we take, they all are honorable to you. We pray in your name of Jesus. Amen.
Real quick before we have public comments, I just wanted to make a quick announcement or a quick moment to address resident participation in council meetings. Lately, our council meetings have gotten very informal, with several audience members speaking out of turn, without being invited to speak by the presiding officer. So I've received complaints from council members and from other residents. So just understand that if the presiding officer allows one person to talk, we've got to allow everybody to talk. And we have some important meetings coming up, and we really just have to make sure that we follow our rules and our procedures, and we dot our I's and we cross our T's. So we welcome everybody to talk, in public comment, during a public hearing, but to please not speak out during the actual meeting. If the presiding officer, which in this case for our council is the mayor, invites you to speak, then we welcome you to speak. But otherwise, we're going to have to try to follow our procedures and make sure we're treating all attendees the same. We don't want people to say we give special permissions to some people. So that's all. We have one person signed up for public comment tonight, and that's Mr. William Rowley Jr.
Thank you. I'm William Houston Rowley Jr. I live at 1015 Cufferson Road. I'm sorry, I still think I'm special. So anyway, I come tonight just to congratulate Mayor-elect Amanda Fulton, Commissioner-elect Mike Como, and I'm glad here that I can say it in person, Commissioner-elect Deb Bledsoe. As a citizen of Wesley Chapel, I appreciate all you guys do to give to our community. Give of yourselves. You all are really a big part of the reason that Wesley Chapel is a great place to live and a great place to raise a family. I am know that y'all are all aware. I've become aware of a lawsuit from Five Stones Corporation against the town. I'm not here to speak about that, but I would like not to remind, that's the wrong word. I'd like for you to remember that earlier this year, after lots of public debate, and as you said, a lot of conversations going a lot of different ways, the Five Stones Corporation, who had broken the law, was allowed to still move from 65 to 105 kids enrollment on their mother mornings out. And the following meeting after y'all had done that, I want you to realize and remember that we came and we thanked y'all for the effort y'all had put into it. That y'all fairly and equitably listened to both sides. That you let, I thought, everybody have an opportunity to speak. That you considered things carefully. I thought you were very competent in the way that you did it. And, we would have liked to have said, hey, we would prefer that it still be 65 kids, but we did no action. We accepted it. We went through the process with you, and so we didn't sue you. We moved on. And so for what it's worth, I just, want you to think about who some of the citizens are as we are into these underneath the microscope, so to speak, with the things that are going on now. But anyway, I've read the lawsuit, and I know you can't comment on it. I don't want you to comment on it. I was surprised how it appeared to be so vague. I've had other attorneys to read it. It's very vague. didn't see any specific allegations, and they kept coming back to this competency thing, and I kind of have a hard time believing that everybody in this room and everybody that's been in this room is incompetent. And so I don't think we're incompetent. And so anyway, for what it's worth, we're with you, the neighbors. I think the citizens of Wesley Chapel are with you. We want to preserve this town. We love what we've got. It's not perfect, but it's starting to really get there. So we're grateful, and we're grateful for all you do. And I hope I didn't say anything improper. Then I will now be quiet. How did I do? Thank you. I'm compliant.
Thank you. Before we move on, anyone else? So that brings us to additions, deletions, and adoption of the agenda. I would like to add, and we can add it at the end after council comments, a closed session for legal advice from our attorney regarding a lawsuit. So we can make that like 13B. Anybody have anything else they would like to add? Also, we do not have, I'm going to scratch out receive audit report for fiscal year 2020-2021. That will be presented to us in December. We're not ready for tonight. Does anybody have anything else?
Laura, not to put you on the spot, but in addition to the update on the Potter and Potter Road roundabout, can we get an update on any CARPO activities this month?
We are done, but yes.
Okay, well, that answers that question. Okay, no problem.
Anybody else? So I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So motion.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. And then, to approve our consent agenda.
Make a motion we approve the consent agenda with the change noted.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So that brings us to item 5, our planning board report, and any comments from the planner. John is not here. Some of it we're not talking about, but I'll turn it over to Ron.
We had a very engaged planning board meeting last month. Lots of residents turned out to listen to the presentation by the applicant and the continued presentation by the applicant and make additional comments and responses to it from both sides. And that's on your consent agenda this evening. There doesn't appear to be anything for the November planning board meeting in terms of business items right now. So,
one question regarding the discussion of the last planning board meeting. Is that because I get the
no, it's a thing.
Yeah.
For lack of a better, it's the intent of whomever originally wrote the ordinance was for that to be a venue for persons interested in an applicant's project to be able to come and hear what they have to say and make comments, and for the planning board to give some degree of advice to the applicant as they continue forward with the process.
The reason I ask is I know there were some discussions before the applicant even put in an application with emails and phone calls and discussion before the application formally was submitted, and I wanted to know if that was going to cause any problems with quasi-judicial proceedings, and I don't know. And he's looking forward to our legal department. Any input there? There was a lot of discussion between council members, between residents, phone calls and emails. Is that something that's going to be an issue in the future?
I think that the important thing is, since the application has been submitted, that up until that point in time, it's simply a possibility of being submitted, and there are discussions that are going on. at the quasi-judicial hearing for that particular matter, it may be that you are asked if you had communications regarding the submission, and if there were communications, then the thought is that you disclose whatever communications you had. So it may be that you say, prior to the submission, we had communications. Since the submission, if anyone has communicated with me, I've basically said it's a quasi-judicial matter and I can't discuss it with you. But I don't think that discussions that took place prior to the application actually being filed can be problematic. Communications after it's been filed are things that, again, would need to be disclosed. From either side, you may have had discussions.
There's been emails, there's been phone calls, there's been people coming and speaking at our meetings, and I didn't want that to be a legal issue sometime in the future.
It may be an issue at the time of the quasi-judicial hearing. Again, you may be asked by one party or the other what communications you've had. And the advice that I would give you is if you have had any communications, you disclose them. Because where you get into problems is undisclosed communications, or if you are to a point where you are incapable of hearing the evidence that's put before you and making a determination, a fair determination based upon what you're hearing that evening, as opposed to what you may have heard outside of the hearing.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
The application itself was a surprise. So there was we were not planning on getting an application from them for a special use permit. That had not ever been part of the discussion. Going back years. So
Okay.
it came as a surprise to me. And that one of the reasons that
One session. Anything else from that meeting?
otherwise fairly uneventful.
Okay.
It was long, but one item that wasn't in the report, we had some communication from Kinley Horn, who's representing Target. I suppose they're pondering or want to install a more permanent drive-up kind of area in the parking lot. I had some questions back for them. I don't think they have to amend anything to do that. They already did it without asking first time around. The area out in front, they want to move it somewhere else. So that's something else this is something more involved than what they currently have. This would have lighting permanently installed.
Like a drive-through.
Well, it's parking spaces they'd be taking out some parking. It would reduce their parking, which they have. Village West Chapel requires an ungodly amount of parking for retail at 1 per 200 square feet. Neither here nor there. They're required to have that much, so I asked them some questions about that. We're working. That's something that you may see as well. We're just kind of trying to figure out how to make that officially happen. And the county continues to tell people they have sewer capacity for various things. Well, they kind of tell them they have sewer capacity for various things.
How do you kind of have sewer?
Well, they said this is, the letter basically says we think we might have sewer capacity. This is not a commitment, but you should proceed forward. I don't do the same kind of math.
They have it down pat.
This is politics, apparently, from what I can tell.
Is there a way to complain to the authority over sewer capacity?
Sure. That's
Who is that agent?
county manager.
Public Works, county manager, or county
Yeah,
How about above them?
the chairman or your district representative.
county commissioners. Because a lot of times the county commissioners are doing things that the public works director
Doesn't know about.
doesn't, well.
Well, but
doesn't
this is coming from the Public Works Department. I mean, their engineers are writing these letters to people that have previously applied. So this would be like McCoy Farm, Heritage, chiefly among them, and saying something to the effect of, there may be sewer capacity available now, but this doesn't represent a commitment to serve you.
The last I spoke to someone about it is when they had approved phase one for the new hospital over on Independence Boulevard, and then they realized that they might not be able to do phase two of the hospital. Because of sewer capacity issues, they decided that the rules that they have say that they cannot reserve capacity for a hospital, but they were thinking about changing the rules so that they could. If you don't like the rules, and you're the county commissioner, change them. To fit your needs.
It's not clear. Those projects may come around and have sewer capacity. They may not.
But I guess I don't understand what the state says when you approach a certain percentage.
I know, yeah. We all know what DEQ's rule is about planning, designing, and having to begin construction when you reach certain levels of capacity. And so I'm not sure what's going on.
Thank you. Gives me a little heartburn for things.
We're all on the same page on it.
All right. Anything else? No?
Cheryl, somebody sent Cheryl from DOT sent Cheryl some drawings for the
Railroad extension.
yeah. So we're taking a look at those. They're asking for comments from us by November 30th. So who knows?
Are they different from the original railroad extension?
It doesn't appear to be. It's more of like an updated cost, like proposed. That was my understanding, right? Like
Yeah, maybe some more detailed.
That's what they said, yeah. But
we can share them with you.
And we had big maps taped to our walls out here for a year showing those potential, those proposed changes. I don't mind if they update the cost of it, but if they're going to make any changes to where the road's actually going to go.
I don't think it's that. I think as they proceed through the design process, they increase the level percentage to which it's designed to, and so as they do that, they have better estimates of what the cost is going to be. So they get
Well, the
closer.
costs are not going down, that's for sure.
No.
So it's like $55 million, I think. But we can forward those to council.
one thing they showed that I didn't recall was they're showing that right at our exit here, a left turn lane. And they're going to take out the median. And then there's still a roundabout at Hardwood. It didn't seem like a good idea to me to have a left turn right here. For one thing, you're going to get behind somebody that's turning left and you'll never get to get out. Turn right.
Story 84. But I'll, if Cheryl just send that.
Sure, I'll send it out.
Mm-hmm.
I have a planning question.
Sure.
I had a resident speak out, I encouraged him to share his concerns with the rest of the council, so giving you guys a heads up that you may be receiving an email asking about the status of the business, the tree service business on Waxhaw Indian Trail Road. Where are we with that?
Right now, nowhere.
Okay.
But we can be.
We can be somewhere.
We generally act by complaint, so if someone has a complaint, please have them, they can send it to me or to Vaughn or both. Or
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know when the right part to do this is, but I might as well do it here. Because Amy works closely with the planner, but Amy will be having surgery next week. She told me I could tell, so I'm going to tell y'all. She'll be having surgery either the 16th or 17th. They think that the mass in her brain is probably cancer. There's a small chance it might be benign, but their first step is to take it out, and then there'll probably be at least a couple courses of radiation, but she'll be in the hospital for a few days and then like a 4-week recovery period, and they'll biopsy the mass and that'll tell them their course of action from there. So if you will just keep her in your thoughts and prayers and be patient with us over the next 4 to 6 weeks as we go down in person and staffing, that would be appreciated. So send her a card if you would like. And then that takes us to the finance officer's report.
Okay. The October report, we got in a good bit of the property tax. We're at about 11% of budget. We got a sales and use tax payment, and we're at 10%, whereas 1 month would normally be 8%, so we're a little bit above budget there. As far as expenses, we pay for a contract planner and for the comprehensive plan work done so far, and we also paid planning board. We've had some legal fees, and we paid for another quarter of the deputy, so we're at half of that. And most of the other things are all just normal things like the landscaping firm, and we do have some payments on the park dam investigation, and there's a check tonight on that. And we pay, I feel like, I guess that's all. Okay, so that's all. And I do have the annual contract for holiday lights at Town Hall. And he noted that we've been doing this for 5 years, I believe now. And some of the items are getting worn out, so the price went up a little this year because they're purchasing LED bulbs to outline the roof. $1,000 there. And
the concept of using this company was that they bought everything and stored it and installed it, put it up, brought it down and stored it for us.
they don't buy it, no, we buy it and they store it. So anyway, the price this year is a little bit over what we budgeted. If we want to do it, we need a budget amendment to move $928 from contingency to the seasonal decorations.
I assume these are like we've had forever. Is that true, or is this periodically we have to replace things?
I think he said that the lights, I don't have the email in front of me, the colors were going off. They were getting blue, I think, because they're LED lights.
Okay.
I want to play Mr. Scrooge and say, bah humbug. I don't really see the point of putting up the lights, but just because I'm not in the Christmas spirit doesn't mean that the town shouldn't be.
Well, I will call you Scrooge because I was going to be the Scrooge as well, and say we get so many comments about not even knowing the town hall is back here. You know, why are we spending almost $2,700 to light a building if people say they can't see?
And I would say that was above what when I saw the invoice was like, why do we bother? Do we at least have some wreaths for the door, a tree for the door? I know we have a tree. Do we have wreaths for the door?
We have a tree. I'll check and see. If we don't, I can buy wreaths for a lot less than $2,600.
And if we get complaints, we can do it next year.
Okay, that's fine.
So does that mean they're just going to continue to store the stuff for us and we're going to pay the contract?
If it's all old, throw it away. No sense in keeping them if they're burned out.
Well, I think
It's
so.
a compromise. Let them put up what they have. is ours that we bought, and let them put it up. And if there's short some lights because they're burnt out, well, we're short some lights because they're burnt out. But let them put up those garlands, let them put up the tree. I don't want to spend more money for something that we're already spending. How much on it?
26.
That contract is for storage of the stuff that we bought and paid for. They put it up, they bring it down.
Is it just the lights go around the top? Where else are they at?
There's
First year they did the cupola, and we took that off after the first year because that was a pain.
There's big wreaths. There's a 60-inch wreath at the front entrance, and there's garland there from the windows. And then there's at the other entrance, there's 30-inch wreaths. There's two 60-inch wreaths here, and there's 2 wreaths at the other door, and there's 9 feet of garland there, and there's 9 feet of garland here.
So if we don't buy new stuff, and we're just paying for the labor, it's only $1,50?
We're paying for labor and storage. That's what the contract is.
Well,
I don't mind paying for the labor, I don't mind paying for the storage. I just don't want to spend more money because they say a string of lights is out.
I would suggest that since we're going to have a part-time park and rec employee, that should we have the wreaths ourselves should be easy enough for us to hang in the future, and we just wouldn't be outlining the building at once.
That means we'll have to get our stuff from their storage.
They could probably drop it off.
do we have ladders that are tall enough? It always seems like it wouldn't be very tall, and I remember the first year that was the thought, and when you go out there and look, it's hard to.
What's the yearly contract, $2,600?
This year it's $2,600, and that's including $1,100.
Buy a ladder for $2,600.
Well, we just said we would just put wreaths on the doors and a tree in the window, so we won't need a ladder.
Let's just do that.
$120 to hang a 60-inch wreath on the door.
Yep.
So
I'll
let's,
do it for 100.
And that's 2 wreaths. So,
I say we can get our stuff back. Hang our own wreaths and put up our own tree. Anything still normally decorate the tree anyway on the
Thank you.
inside. We just put it on a timer so it'll be lit up at night so we won't be all locked on fire.
okay, we'll try to do that.
Christmas spirit.
Okay.
And I do think, and all to Jada's point, is before the Novant building went in, there was a little more visibility to Town Hall. But with the Novant building situated the way it is, there's very little visibility. And honestly, you don't have time to be looking to the side when you're driving down Maple. It's risky time.
That's fine.
If we get our stuff, what are we going to put?
Well, it looks like the lights are going to go in the trash and the wreaths are going to go on the door. And the bottoms can go on the windows. However,
When we built Town Hall, we had 2 storage rooms. Park and Rec has taken over 1, but there's still another room where planning and zoning things are, and we could put it there.
so I make a motion that we ask for our stuff back and we go through it and see what we need to throw away and we decorate the way we want to.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Any residents that complain about it, you can direct them to me.
All right. Sarah, do you have anything else?
I did take the 3-week class on the American Rescue Plan. There's still no final rule. There was a Senate bill to expand the uses of the money to transportation items. I'm not sure if the House has also passed anything. I'm not sure what else is going on, but it seems like there is some workings going on behind the scenes, not only there, but also the state is getting money, and they may be throwing out programs where towns could get some money from the state and do things. So it's still a whole lot of questions.
I know the county sent out an email saying that 501c3 nonprofits could be applying for funds that they have available from the county level. Through the Humane Society, we're thinking about applying for, and I told them the story of the money we got specifically for COVID. We ended up applying for and receiving, I think, $3,700, where other towns got $500,000. So first thing we're going to try to do is figure out how big of a bucket of funds there are.
Yeah, but we also struggle to spend our $34
I think if I gave John $500,000, he'd figure out how to spend it.
Not within those
Not within the
constraints, you
rules.
couldn't.
They can't give us the rules.
There are like 5 different buckets that you can spend money out of. And the first one is pretty much public health testing and vaccinations, that sort of thing. And then the next one is disproportionately affected populations to prevent the spread of COVID, which gets to be a real hard thing for us to justify that kind of a thing. The third one is the easy bucket. It's if you have a revenue loss. For the first year, 2020, we did not have a revenue loss. In fact, we sold land for $400,000. So I don't know what 2021 will bring. You have to do it calendar year each year, so I don't know if we'll have a loss this year or not. If you have a loss, you can spend it pretty much for any general governmental function. So that's your easy bucket if you qualify. Then the other thing is the water and sewer, and our project does not qualify under water and sewer. It does not, or the stormwater. That is for a utility who is charging out water and sewer rates to people. I've asked several times in several different sessions, and I don't think we qualify under that bucket.
So we will just continue to patiently wait.
Oh, and there's the other thing out of the sessions, 3 weeks. There's a whole lot of rules you got to comply with. We have all kinds of policies that we got to come up with. We have to have them documented, written. If they're not in writing, they don't exist. And the school government is very helpful in trying to get these policies and documents for us to develop. So we have to stand on our head and do all kinds of things.
Nothing's free.
Can we charge employee time working towards getting the answer?
You can charge an administrative amount, like for my time. As far as I understand, you could, like something like a 10% administration thing. And they said about getting your attorneys involved. And it sounded like you could charge direct attorney time. The other thing that was really weird that came up, I hadn't heard this real early on, but then they were saying that if you have a capital project, which would be bathrooms or a picnic shelter, that it says in the rules that you have to have pre-approval from the Treasury Department to do a capital project. But then it says somewhere else, we're not going to give pre-approval for any project. So it's a perfect catch-22. So they're hoping that the final rule will deal with that. Yes.
So we'll just continue to wait. Thank you for that update, Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? You all good?
I'm done. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Lepke, the Parks and Rec report.
I'd like to echo the congratulations to those who were elected and re-elected. We had our regular meeting on October 28th. We talked at length about events. As you know, we cancelled our usual fall bash event, for which we were planning $4,000, so we didn't spend any money on that event. But we are proposing 2 events for this year. One, a kind of small, informal, meet your neighbour around the bonfire. Not a big thing where we do massive banners and big advertising campaign. just a mention on Facebook, hey, if you want to come out and meet your neighbours, we'll be having a bonfire. We'd like council to give us the go-ahead to do that. We're looking at just a couple-hour event, 6 to 8 p.m. on November the 20th. We'd like to provide s'mores for the kids, glow sticks, that kind of stuff. So hot cocoa, that kind of thing. We're asking for a budget of no greater than 500. We don't think we're going to spend anywhere near that, but we haven't priced out and we haven't counted how many Swiss Miss we need, how many chocolate bars and stuff like that, because it's such a small amount of money. So it's a family event, meet your neighbours, get around the bonfire, burn all the trash pallets we have in the park on the bonfire, and we'll gather some of the fallen trees that we dropped and we cut up, but they're still laying around the park. We talked about the COVID thing around somebody handling s'mores and passing off, so we wouldn't do that. We'd wear gloves, make individual baggies, and just pass a baggie that had been prepared with gloves on, with the chocolate and the cookies and the marshmallows in a bag, and they'd assemble their own s'mores. We already have some long toasting forks. So we'd like council to consider approving that one. And then on December the 18th, we were thinking about a holiday event, probably running from 11 to 2. We try and engage Southbrook Choir again, maybe reach out to Union County Orchestra and see if they could bring out some strings to play some holiday music, not dragging out the whole amplification system, just doing acoustic holiday music. Perhaps have meet your first responders, try and get the sheriff to send out the detective there in the dog uniform thing, maybe an EMT and a fire engine. Santa, we'll try and get Santa again, Mrs. Claus to come on the fire engine and be a photo op. We'd create the holiday, the Christmas nook we created in the past. And then we do the Polar Express again, which is a train that rides around the peg trail around the pond. Basically a family-oriented, kid-oriented event again with some acoustic music. We haven't got a budget for it yet. We want you guys to say, okay, sounds like a plan, go ahead and pull together the details and we'll do that before the next council meeting.
John, do you think you have enough time to pull something together for December 18th?
It's basically just a bonfire and then getting the stuff for the s'mores and ordering the glow sticks from Amazon, that kind of stuff.
I'm fine with doing it. Have you talked to anybody at Southwood Church?
Not about the November 18th event because they would not be involved in that one, but if you give us the okay for the December the 18th, we're going to develop an action plan and break out the work to make sure parking is available. We don't need their parking on November 18th because it's a small event, but December the 18th we would.
What day in November? Because the 18th is a Thursday.
Sorry, November 20th. November 18th is our next meeting where we finalise all your in. We have at least 4 Parks and Rec members saying they would be present for the November 20th bonfire. And if possible, we'd like Brandon to work. If he could be there 6 to 8, maybe a little later if he's working that day. So if you give us the go-ahead, we'd like you guys to check. If Cheryl could check with Brandon or somebody could check with Brandon.
So you haven't checked with Southwood yet to make sure they don't have an event that day, or?
On December the 18th, no, we haven't. We first want to make sure you guys are comfortable with us doing it, and then if you say, yep, sounds like a plan, go ahead, then we'll do all the reaching out to the choir, Santa, Southbrook.
John, I think it's an ambitious goal, but I think this late in November, most of those places are going to be committed for the December events. But if you can do it, I'm right behind you.
My concern about the November event, as we've talked about in the nighttime event, because of lighting and traffic and crossing 84. You can say it's a small event, but if somebody parks over there and walks across and gets hit, it's our fault.
And then just the whole thing, we're not really advertise it, that we're gonna get into all this problem, so to speak. You know, it sounds nice, but then, you know, it's like what's the ROI kind of thing of, well, putting out the December event sounds great. If Southbrook isn't having an event that day that conflicts.
So for the 20th event, we were thinking using the overflow parking, and we discussed, well, what if we get more and we have to turn them away? There's going to be some people unhappy. The consensus was, if it's not a big event, you're not going to get more than 100 people showing up. You know, we've got 48 paid spaces and we've got 48 unpaid spaces. So the consensus was, for the kind of event, we're thinking we're not going to overwhelm the parking.
But that's still dark at 6.
Yeah, but the area where the bonfire is lit. The lights are on all the time, so you know we have lighting throughout the parking lot, and we have lighting all the way down the trail to the amphitheater.
But it's going to be a family event, we still have lights at the...
We're going to close the playground, so we're going to put this area of the park is closed, close the playground off, and it's only parking lot bonfire.
I don't think that means anybody is gonna respect that and not want to drop that in the area. I imagine more people might be there.
We could orange fence it.
Sorry?
We could put up some orange fencing if we had to.
If we had to. I don't. The feeling was it's not going to be a huge thing. We put a feeler out on Facebook and think there are about 10 responses saying, yeah, it sounds like a fun event.
I gotta put the energy in and support and not go with the holiday event. You know, you can still do a bonfire and, you
Up
know.
to you guys. You know, if you've seen the feedback from the Vision 2020 thing, it was more events, more events, more events. So we were trying to be responsive to the feedback from the Vision 2020. Sorry, 2050.
All right, David?
I agree, and I don't like the thoughts of inviting people into the park after dark. I think having more events to encourage us to meet our neighbors is a good thing, but I just don't think timing of it with it being after dark would be good. I'd like to see, I mean, other than finding out about Southbrook's availability and I guess the other folks that will help with the event, is there anything else that council would need to do prior to that, i.e. set a budget for this, so we can go ahead and approve that?
I mean, not today, because I can't give you individual line items, but by next council meeting, we'll know whether parking's available, Southbrook's available, and we'll have a detailed budget for you by the next council meeting. For December 18th.
The council meeting's on the 13th, and this event will be on the 18th, so that'll be the Monday of that week.
Don't you have some idea from the last holiday events that we could do some sort of preliminary budget approval?
Yes, it was about $5,000 with the deputies, restrooms. Yeah.
Like a list of this type of, yeah.
So it's
And then
We
you just
already
work with
planned
the
our
budget.
Christmas event, so we can just go back to that event and tentatively approve that budget.
because the last Christmas event, Friends of Parks and Recreation paid for a lot of things that we no longer have. You can look at the historical village spending on that event.
Did you know what they spent?
Sorry?
Do you know how much they spent?
Not exactly, no.
Could it be presented at our organizational meeting? So does that not qualify?
It doesn't say that you can't consider other things if you want to consider something.
And what's the date of that meeting?
It's a week before the first one, so it's like December 6th.
It doesn't say you can only appoint.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
But like, getting deputies, and this is holiday time, they tell you 30 days ahead, you may not have a chance of getting deputies.
What if we got the numbers by December 6th? Isn't that good?
It works for me.
We verify deputies are available, parking's available, we check all the boxes, and we come back, and if all the boxes are checked, we say we're going to need X number of dollars to pull it off. All the boxes have been checked, and if they Southbrook says, sorry, our parking ain't available, we'll come back and we'll say we can't do it. Or if the deputies aren't available. If there's a deal killer in when we're checking the boxes, we'll...
And I think if that's the case, could we push it into January and have a January event? And have a daytime event? And
Christmas in January?
Well, it could be Christmas, it could be winter. The whole point is community engagement, right?
Yeah, I like the idea of having a bonfire and Santa and the Polar Express and that kind of thing.
The Jack Frost train.
What is the thing, I can't think of the right words, about like there is an event that is like in January, it's like 14 days of Christmas, it's sort of an old-fashioned thing.
Well,
I think the key is whether we get South with church involved.
It will be tough if that date is reserved, but that doesn't mean we don't try to do something later.
And that was the plan. We want the okay to go ahead, and then we'll go at it full blast and see if we can check all the boxes. What we talked about doing was dividing up all the things that have to be done. We recognise it's tight, and then people stepping up for certain sections of it, and we go get the answers and pull out if we can.
So let me summarize what I think. No one is in favor of the November 20th.
Epiphany.
Is that correct?
I'm not in favor of it.
Right.
Well, you can't really have a bonfire during the day unless you want to do it during the day.
You can.
You can do the wise manner. Come closer. Come closer.
Could you think Parks and Rec
Church
would
and
be
gets
able to
back in
doing the event?
With their display, it gets closer and closer and closer to the baby Jesus.
After the park is closed, so the event doesn't
I think that
clash with regular park hours.
But I do have concerns, because I do think that when you plan to keep it small, you can't control it. And we've seen that when somebody gets a hold of a Facebook post.
I raised
You can
that
go
concern.
rogue.
I raised that same concern.
So I think if you plan an event, you have to plan for either 50 people or 500 people. There's no, because if somebody walks across that road and we don't have safety, we are liable. So I think that in interest of time and safety, we wait until the summer.
Right. Got it.
And I would suggest that we think about approving some sort of budget, and then that's a budget you work in, recognizing that there was a portion previously paid for by the Friends of Parks and Rec that we would also need to account for in the budget.
I'd say if you approve not to exceed $5,000 for the December event, we could work with that.
or that much.
Well,
I think
I'd ask you guys for $5,000 an
We would want
event.
advertisement, we would want to have some treats. You got the Santa thing, if you got Santa, you're giving kids candy or something.
Candy canes, yeah.
I think Southbrook was taking care of the cost of the Polar Express.
Yep.
They were also taking care of the Mr. and Mrs. Claus. We did the backdrop and the seating for that. Other than the advertising,
We did the cops, we did the banners, we did the
Porta
extra porta pots.
but I don't see that adding up to $5,000.
The train.
I bet we could still have 5 stones to
I don't think we've ever spent $5,000, but that may be because Friends of Park and Rec spent some money. But we ourselves
Last time
don't know.
Southbrook paid the cost of the train.
And they may fancy that at this time, and they may not. I don't know, I can't tell you.
I'm in favor of giving John a little bit of rope here and see if we can get something together by the December 6th meeting and see if we can check the majority of these boxes.
I I frankly feel like that is too late for him to go out and ask these groups to say, hey, we want to do something on the 18th, but I can't really commit yet because I have to go to council on the 6th, so can you hold on to it for 10 days for me? That doesn't sound very
Right before the horse.
yeah, so I'm okay saying, hey, we can give you, we have not had an event for a while. I mean, in some, across the last 18 months, and so, I think $5,000 is reasonable, not to exceed, does not mean try to spend it all.
I get that. I'm cheap, I always try to save money.
But I think it would be a nice amount.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
John, okay, well, if you can get Southport to be on board, that's what I think is going to help make it a success.
Actions will start this week.
So is that a motion to approve up to $5,000, which would be very cheap?
What did we have approved for the event that we didn't do? The fall bash? 4,000?
When we budgeted 4 events at 4,000 each. The ask was 5 events at 5,000 each, total 25. Council said no, 4 events at 4,000 each, and we spent 0 of the $16,000.
So I motion that we try to do a December 18th event from 11 to 2, pending Southbrook's availability
And participation.
and we spend up to $5,000.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Would there be anything that the Parks and Rec would have to come back to us for approval on the 13th? No.
Just, I'd say an update, make sure that everything's on track, that Southport is available, and that,
If it's not available, you guys will know right away. I'll let you know right away. That's just not going to happen. If it is going to happen, I'll let you know that too, and then we'll get into the detail. And
stay in touch.
I will.
All right. So that brings us to the charter.
Well, wait,
Vote on it.
Okay, we didn't vote.
All in favor? Sorry.
No, I got a few other things for you.
Okay.
We talked about the possibility of a maintenance employee and specifically around the tools that employee would need to perform the duties specified in the job. We reviewed a list of the tools that are going to be required. I went out shopping, not buying anything, looking at prices, like at Lowe's, and applied the 5% discount that Lowe's gives us. And the first one I came up with was for everything, with one caveat, I'll fill in a minute, for everything on the list as we discussed, it was going to be $3,250.26, not including tax, which is above the $2,500. We originally asked for 10 grand, and you guys got it to 2,500. So it came up more. So I then went further shopping, and I went to Ace Hardware and told them that, hey, Lowe's gives us a 5% discount. Can you give us some discount? And he discounted essentially the same items, some of them 10% and some 5%, and he came up with a total of $2,900.27. So saved us some. And he said, oh, and by the way, there'd been a price increase since you'd looked at those other things, and you need to really. So the first quote I told you is probably significantly higher than that now because there's been a price increase. This is still good. The one from A-Try gave us 30 days validity on the quote, I think.
John, I don't have that information.
I haven't seen the list.
Yeah, that didn't be shared with council.
Amy had it. We gave it to Amy. Anyway, Cheryl has suggested maybe we need a third quote.
Well, anytime you purchase over $1,000, your purchasing policy calls for 3 quotes.
You get Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware.
Right.
Can you give us a rundown of what's on the list?
Yes. So on the list is a backpack blower, a combi mower so you can change the tools out, a pole pruner to cut low branches off trees, a brush cutter to thin brush, a line trimmer to do weed whacking, a shaft extension so you can get high or low branches, a chainsaw.
The chainsaw we have.
for cutting up fallen, yeah, they're not working very well.
They're, yeah, they're older, but they're,
So you can, a cordless drill, a cordless circular saw, chargers and batteries for those tools, a pick, mattock, a large landscape rake, a extendable manual tree pruner for pruning branches, and a pressure washer. Now, missing off the list that somebody raised at the Parks and Rec meeting was, well, you're going to need some hose for the pressure washer. So we need to add to the list about 300 feet of heavy-duty garden hose. So the ask is two things. One, could we move $1,000 from events that we haven't spent to increase the budget for the tools from $2,500 to $3,500? And can we approve up to $3,500 to buy this list of tools?
Okay, so when we did the budget conversation, we talked about that everything would be battery powered. And the way you discussed the list was no, it sounded like some gas power and some battery power. So if there's gas power, then there's fuel cost and fuel storage and some other things. Because I think everything that you list out, you can actually buy battery powered.
You can't buy with the same power with the blower.
I mean, it's not a residential situation, it's a
But I mean,
commercial.
that is something, another aspect we have to think about this equipment is, we're buying this equipment, we now have all one fuel costs we have to think about, as well as the storage of fuel. And the storage of all the equipment. And so I don't know the storage facility and the storage of the fuel.
We have the 40-foot shipping container, we have the ability to store fuel, we store fuel in there now. That's not really an issue. I'll just do a little flashback before you were a council, before David. We actually had backpack blower, the cordless drill, the weed whacker, and all that. And when the shipping container got moved to its current location, there was a whole bunch of things that during the reorganization that just disappeared into the tunes of over, $3,500.
It was all these tools.
All those tools just disappeared.
We had them before, and they're vanished.
We used to do a yearly inventory, John and I, where we would submit to Cheryl an inventory of what we had, serial numbers, makes, models, everything, and then that stopped for a year, and everything just disappeared. And we brought that to council, and at the time, the mayor at the time and the council members at the time thought it was not worth pursuing. Is that a fair way to say it?
So the thought was it'd be a good idea to have these tools in place by the time a hiring is made, so that the person has the tools to do the job for which the person is being hired.
And this is going to be above and beyond what the landscaping will do.
Correct. This is to perform the duties that were in the job description list.
John, I'm sorry that we didn't get that prior to tonight's meeting.
I want to know how my baby needs to be successful, so if it means, what do you want, 35 around?
Right. There's 25 in the budget. The suggestion, the proposal is that includes the pressure washer.
With the third time?
Yeah. It doesn't. So the total with the pressure washer, but without the hoses, in the quote from ACE is $2,900.27. So I'm figuring for less than $3,500, we'd be able to add in 300, 400 feet of garden hose, heavy-duty garden hose for the pressure washer. So there's 25 in the budget. We're asking if you could move 1,000 from events to that tool budget, and then approve up to 3,500 total expenditure on this list of tools.
And then you'll update the three quotes, so we'll be following our procedure.
We'll have to get another quote from somewhere.
The other thing is like a hose reel maybe for all that garden hose for transport. But the other thing I was thinking about is this is the time of year when everybody starts off their sales and everything, right? There's always Home Depot, Lowe's, and everybody will start big holiday sales. So there is an opportunity to actually save a little money and get a little extra if we would do this
I
way.
think if you notice the brands that all the professional contractors use is Steel. Steel don't do sales like that. And neither does the wall. And the guy has given us a 10% discount off the Steel equipment We have to provide him with a tax ID because he gets it back from Steel Corporate, who have a deal for municipalities.
Oh.
So it's it's professional grade equipment, it's not homeowner grade equipment.
I'm okay with the 3,500 too. I do want them to have what they want. I do want us to make sure that what we're buying is
It's what has to be
appropriate,
in weekend.
so that we're not completely replacing them. You know, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve purchase of appropriate tools for the part-time maintenance, village maintenance worker, not to exceed $3,500.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes. What's our plans as to when we will hire this person?
It's
I'm
on the
making a
agenda
motion.
later.
I'm
There's
sorry.
not,
It's on the agenda.
Okay, but I mean, what would be the effective date?
I'm
Sorry.
going to ask for December, either November 29th or December 1st.
My only concern is if we had this equipment before, and throughout a possible transition it went missing, I would not open the door to having another transition. I would recommend that this equipment be purchased day one of that person's employment, so that that person has complete responsibility and control of the equipment.
the equipment disappearing last time was not because we didn't know that it disappeared. It was because of the apathetic nature of the fact that it disappeared by council.
Okay. Then who's going to take ownership of that equipment if it's bought tomorrow?
Yeah.
And who has keys to the shipping container?
I have one, Cheryl has one, Mike has one.
And we're sure those are all three.
And for the first 5 years, we didn't have a single screw this
Not a thing disappeared in 5 years when we had it. And it's only when the container got moved, I wasn't involved, I wasn't around. We went back to doing inventory and stuff wasn't there.
I don't think there's going to be a repeat of anything missing in the future. And also, I'd like to point out, this may or may not help the discussion, but all these things that have been done over the last 8 years, 9 years, I mean, we have pressure washed in the park. We have used leaf blowers, and we have used hoses and screwdrivers and everything. But it's usually John's stuff or my stuff. So the difference is, instead of us having to haul our pressure washers over and our hoses over and our screwdrivers and everything else, this would be something that the village would own, have in-house, and we wouldn't be using our own equipment.
Do we have to mark it with property in the village of Wesley Chapel?
Yeah, definitely.
Like we did the
Yeah,
agreement?
like we did the sound equipment. We've got the tags to stick on there.
Any further questions?
Okay, so wait, Lori made a motion to approve the purchase, but first we need to move money before we can purchase, and then also if you can address whether you want the free quotes or not.
Okay. So Michael send the second. We will get 3 quotes, and we need to move money from where? From events?
$1,000 from the 2021 budget for events, specifically into what account? Tools, equipment, supplies.
No, the tools.
So for the third quote, I already have 2. For the third quote, if I go on the store's website and pull down all the model numbers and prices, is that sufficient if I put them in a spreadsheet from a...
You can go over the program for the resident saying that it's football. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, I've got the lowest prices already.
And then take the rest over to Home Depot and go to the pro's desk and just say, give me a list of this, and I'll put all of that. Just leave it alone.
Does that work, Carol?
Okay, so is it going to be
The problem with
documented?
it is
Or?
going to be that Home Depot doesn't offer steel brand, and then it's going to be down. Steel is only available at certain outlets where they actually service the equipment. You can't buy steel at Lowe's, you can't buy steel.
Yeah,
So you
steel's
can,
only the, yeah.
Only through authorized dealers.
But I would say comparable pro equipment, and I would say that means not Joe Blow brand, but like a DeWalt or.
But there is another Ace in Indian Trail I could maybe go to. I think he carries steel as well, so I could go there and get third quote.
Well, it doesn't make sense to compare one Ace and another Ace.
Actually, it's called Indian Trail Hardware, I don't think it's Ace anymore.
No,
It's gone back to
Gone back
Ace.
to
Back
Ace.
Ace?
Yeah. What
So,
does?
I'll go to Ace, Indian Trail, and get another quotation. I'll give him that list of tools, so give me a quotation for this. And then we've got the list I got from Lowe's, the Lowe's Ace combination. I got the Ace full quote with all the big discounts, and I'll go get the third one from Indian Trail. And we'll go with the lowest quote for comparable pro quality.
And I would say,
To be less than-
if both Ace stores come back with the same quote, we split it. For goodwill.
He doesn't like lawyers.
Thinking the same thing.
He was sound asleep.
John, there's 2 dozen steel dealers that are on this side of Charlotte. I recommend sending them an email, sending them a fax, sending them something, just say, hey, I need to know all this. Interstate equipment over here on 74.
That's what, yeah, Mill Springs.
Yeah, there's steel dealers close by.
So I don't care if it's December 1st, November 29th, or whenever this new person is going to start. We're splitting hairs here. Difference between a week to 10 days. I mean, we're not going to do much on day one unless we've got a list of projects we're going to.
What is the list?
Okay, so, Lori, would you like to remake your motion that we approve it with getting three quotes and remove the money from events to tools?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve not to exceed $3,500 for the purchase of tools after we've secured 3 comparable quotes, and we will go with the low bidder. And to accommodate this, we will move $1,000 from the 2021 events account to the tools account.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Just a couple more quick items. We talked about the dam, the fact that council approved the money for the next step in the process. Bonnie's group has completed their work and made the submission. So the evaluation is ongoing of the data that's been submitted. 2 more items. We talked a lot about the possibility of a restroom / outdoor classroom / picnic shelter kind of thing, storage room at the park in anticipation that we might have been able to use the American Rescue Act water and sewer money to do that. We talked about things like changing the location much closer to the sewer pipe and water pipes because we knew the big house was running. The consensus of the committee was not a good place for the restroom, so we kind of put this together. This is the park. So the planned location all along for the restroom has been here, and the sewer line is down here. The sewer line follows this line here. The water line is along this road. We had the utility drawings to run the sewer line, like across here down to here. Trees had previously been cleared when we did the park to run the sewer line through there. So I said, well, what if we put the restroom right there? There's the sewer line, and there's the water line, and there's a hydrant right there. I don't know if the hydrant is close enough to meet the requirement, but I said, why don't we put it there and save all that money building? Rest of the committee didn't like the idea, thought it was too remote. All the activity now, here's where the playground is, there's the fire pit, the playground's right here. All the activity is around here, so they thought the bathroom really needs to be up here. But instead of putting it there, we thought we'd put it right here. And then if we're going to have a storage room for the music equipment, we can take music equipment down to the stage. There's an ADA access trail there already to get to the restroom, so you'd access the restroom on this side. And then the other thing people didn't like about this is it obstructs view of the amphitheatre and across the park. If we put a building here, we lose a picnic area. The picnic area really doesn't fit too well unless it's facing that way. So if we put it here, the picnic / outdoor classroom.
If they move where it is, it's body of the review, stormwater.
It would face onto the park. So you basically.
Where the house used to be.
Sorry?
Where the house used to be.
Well, no, where the current restrooms are. So where the current porta johns are. So we'd have to find a temporary location for those during construction. But it shortens the distance maybe a little bit, but not much. So it's not going to be the big cost saving of placing the restroom down here. But after a lot of back and forth, the recommendation is to put it right there.
Was there any discussion about putting it where we normally put bounce houses and stuff with grass over field parking? That would really split the difference.
We talked about putting it down by the gate down here, and that'd be closer to the sewer line, closer to the water line.
But here you're right parking lot and you're closer to the sewer.
If we can't use the new COVID fund, it might be a new point anyway.
Sure.
But we've decided on where we'd recommend it go. We've written a specification. We just got to finalise it now, and then we can give it to you guys should the funds ever be available to do it.
So where did they recommend it would go? I couldn't follow that map from over here. Where did they recommend it go?
Where the current porta johns are.
Oh, okay.
Cheryl, I know that they haven't made a decision on exactly how the money can be spent, but they have made a decision on what it has to be spent by.
Mm-hmm.
So they've given us a deadline, but they haven't given us a start line. Right? Is that a fair way to say it?
Well, there's certain things that you can spend money on. It's just most of those things don't apply to us.
Okay.
Right, the last thing we talked about was the charter, which you have before you. The big points on the charter were we recommend the removal of the thread trail elements in the Parks and Rec charter. The reason for that, it is a huge, monumental, very long-term task, and should the village wish to pursue thread trail components that cross Wesley Chapel, our suggestion would be to form a thread trail specific committee to look at that. And the other point was, if we have that burden, it's a distraction from other things we could be doing. So the recommendation was to remove the thread trail bit, and then we basically eliminated, just noted that many of the tasks that were originally out, we've done. We built Dogwood Park, we're finishing Dogwood Park out, but the rest of the committee's remit stay about the same as it is already. So we're asking if council will accept the amendment to the committee charter.
We'll give you a chance to read them. Okay. Motion to accept the amended charter as outlined.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, folks.
John, will you let me know about that gate?
Yes.
So that brings us to an update on the hiring of a part-time employee. We have 3 applicants, both were great candidates. Based upon the history and service to the park, I am going to recommend that we extend an offer to Mr. John Lexton with a start date of either, the week starts on, it's like the second week of the pay week, but you could start, we could have them start Monday, November 29th. The next pay cycle would start December 6th. But he's not that big of a deal, right, Sheriff? It starts halfway through a week. And I can't remember exactly what we decided about pay rate, but I think it was 18.
Because it's 19 hours, and that's where I was
Yeah,
getting
19
confused
hours.
as to how many hours and dollars.
Yeah, so 19 hours a week. So there'd be no accrued vacation or sick time. I think it was 18.
I had done some, got information from some other towns.
Sheriff, I've gotten some information from other towns, and they are starting more at the lower end of the scale, around 13. We also have a list of trainings that we've worked with our insurance company and with the other towns to see what their parks maintenance technicians have to take. An OSHA class, commercial ground applicator pesticide license, adult and pediatric CPR and first aid certification, chainsaw operation, emergency action plan, which we will have to do, fire extinguisher trimming, tree trimming. We thought that we should at least provide safety shoes, boots, and glasses, provided and required to be worn, and 3 t-shirts and 2 sweatshirts with village identification, so people wouldn't wonder who the person is wandering around the park.
Yeah, for some reason I always got a weird vibe when I was walking through the park with a chainsaw, cut down a tree. People didn't want to walk near me. Some scary guy walking through the park with a chainsaw. No, I wasn't wearing hiking boots, but if I was probably wearing a shirt that said park maintenance, it would probably have been a little bit less scary.
I think we need to include some gloves of a couple of different types. Some medical gloves as well as work gloves, and a face shield for wanting to breathe. If using another machine, so might be a good idea.
I question also the pesticide application training.
Nope, required by our insurance.
Even though we have a landscaper and John's not going to be doing that.
He's not going to be applying any of it? Ever?
Yeah, and the hills.
I mean, it's
I'm very familiar with the EPA rules on pesticide.
it's like that, but if you're doing it, you have to be trained. You don't want to be allowed. It's like $70.
I say we
At
train
this
them.
point. It's $70.
Because I don't want to go out there and saying it's okay, and then something happen. I would rather train them.
And then our insurance say, no, we're not paying.
Or what?
It's government. Why do we, you know you're going to bang your head against the wall about certain things, but you just have to do it. You have to do it.
This is not the place to get nitpicking. We
No.
want this employee, we want to take advantage of this, we're going to do it right, we're going to get the right training, we're going to have the right materials and the right supplies.
Yep.
It's the right thing to do.
Fine. And John, you're going to have to add to your list 1 fire extinguisher. If you're going to get training on a fire extinguisher, you actually have to own a fire extinguisher.
And we should probably all have.
We don't own one right now, so.
Maybe more than one, depending upon location of said fire extinguisher.
I'd say buy where we store the gasoline.
Oh,
So I will motion that we hire Mr. Lutke. Does anybody have the monetary figures in front of you?
no, I
I've
think
got the
that's-
statement of duties, but I don't have the compensation plan.
I thought you had something separate.
John, do you remember?
It's 18 an hour.
I think that's what it was. Although I will ask council,
Because I remember we had the conversation around Amy's rate and
And-
park rate.
so I will ask that if we do, that we consider a raise for Amy in our organizational meeting when we consider our staff increment, to just keep this in mind.
And the position is working under direct supervision of the mayor and the mayor only.
I think it was just like our other staff do, that, I forget how it's worded, and, but yes, ultimately,
Okay. Okay.
so we'll see if he, I mean, I think, did somebody second my motion? Oh, we're waiting on them. I think it was $18
And $19 a week.
$19 a week.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? So we will see if he approves or denies our offer of employment. And then we do have some.
Did you vote on it?
Not yet, we're discussing.
Okay.
But that does leave us an opening for Parks and Rec chair, because he will have to step down from his position.
But he will still attend the meetings.
I think it's as whatever we wrote in that job description, because we did not want to consume all of his hours in the meeting.
That's true.
So maybe there's an important thing. And also that one of the first job duties be to clean out that closet and figure that work out. I see you. I see you. But I want to vote on it first. So, all in favor? Yes, Mr. Lutke.
May I suggest that you accept the resignation of the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee effective the day after the next Parks and Rec meeting, so that Parks and Rec has an opportunity to nominate the new chair of the committee. So basically, so the committee isn't chairless.
Does that mean you're accepting our offer of employment?
Am I?
And so when is your next meeting?
November 18th.
Okay.
Can we accept a resignation in advance like that? Can I accept a resignation in advance? Been effective November 18th?
Just make it effective a certain date.
Okay, so we will accept the resignation of the current Parks and Rec chair on effective November 19th. That gives Parks and Rec time to find out who they want to nominate for council. All right. Okay.
So you just accepted that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's just me, right?
Right. Mhm.
And we have to vote on the actual motion.
We did.
We did? Okay.
All right, so, we all good? Ready to move forward? It took a long time, but thank you for your service to the park, Mr. Lepke. We're excited to see it continue in a different form. Your boss is a major B, but. Update on Potter and Potter. I got a call from Sean a couple weeks ago. Several projects have been delayed. So our already at least twice delayed Potter and Potter roundabout due to right-of-way issues, right-of-way acquisition issues, utility companies having trouble finding workers to work to relocate utilities and other factors. Several projects, including ours, including Marvin's, have been postponed. And I said, we're going to get ran out of town. And I begged, but there's nothing we can do. So instead of happening in summer of 2022, it will be March of 2023. He did say that they were hoping maybe that there would be funds available to potentially move up Potter and 84 and maybe do them at the same time. Who knows? Who knows? But that is what he said. There was nothing we can do to move it up. That is it's DOT's.
Well, we're still on the top of the list.
We're still on the list, yeah. We're still on the list.
So
But I think the issue here is that you go in and you look at an intersection and you make assumptions about it, and it seemed like maybe that initial due diligence wasn't sufficient to identify some of these potential issues. Because it seems like an issue in every
There
part of that
was
roundabout.
there was an issue with the septic tank fields, and they worried we'd get one resident on sewer and the other one not. So March 2023, hopefully they won't postpone it again. Marvin was not happy either. But I think there were at least 9 projects that got postponed. And we won't have them.
In regards to trying to do the two together, because I go through that intersection a lot, both of them, frankly, is that when you consider where the school's at and the school traffic and everything around them, I'm not sure it's feasible to consider, because I don't even know how the one at 84 is going to get rerouted when you think about school buses. And it's going to be awful. So I couldn't imagine that you would have that one close to where, for example, you can't use that bottom.
I'm not too worried about DOT coming out with extra money.
Oh, me neither, but I'm just saying it's something that it sounds good, but we also do have to think about the impact, especially if somebody during school year.
But as far as I know, I have heard several complaints recently. We are still under contract to have 84 repaved from here to the elementary school before June. So we're under contract. Paperwork has been signed. DOT cannot,
We've done that for what, 5 years?
but there's the vendor or the contractor signed it, and they have until June. So hopefully we will see a resurfacing of 84 before June. Fingers crossed.
Well, that's from the stoplight to the stoplight.
I think it was from like Blackstone, or maybe it was Town Hall to, I can try to find the answer.
So the whole Bumpy area will probably get missed at the start.
But I sent it to Deb last week because we had somebody ask. Do you remember what I sent you? Let me pull it up real quick. Yes, Silverleaf, which is
Right here.
here or there.
Blackstone.
Blackstone, so Silverleaf to Potter Road. DOT could not commit to when the contractor would be doing the work, but the contract period ran June to May. So hopefully May, by May.
So at the beginning, David asked about Carpo, so just, we'll give you a quick update. But all of the Carpo meetings are live streamed on Facebook for anyone who wants to participate, and most of the cadence within it is that things come along and they go to the project coordinating committee, the technical coordinating committee, and then they get presented to the Carpo board for informational purposes, and then maybe the next month it'll get voted on. And so there's not much that gets voted on. It's a long process. And like at the last meeting, there was conversation about the strategic vision and committee working on that. So that's good information to have. And it was looking at the funding method for non-road items. And a lot of the items that Carpo covers don't impact Village or Wesley Chapel per se because of just our location. But all of the information, everything related to Carpo is out there. But they don't necessarily do updates like what you got from Sean. Those don't happen. It's like, hey, we don't have funds to move forward, there's a delay, or there's a proposal, but that's usually the extent of it. We were able to vote and we had some additional funds this summer to approve the one that was ours, but most of the time it's just not that level of detail that impacts the village directly. But all the information is readily available. The one thing to note is because of the pandemic, we've been meeting virtually since March or April. Maybe we missed 1 month waiting for that. And we recently did vote to amend the bylaws that the chair can do a virtual meeting. And because the feedback was so overwhelming that there's greater and easier participation to meet virtually than in person. So there will be some in-person meetings maybe once a quarter. But continuation of the hybrid or more virtual meetings, because trying to do virtual, some people in the room is a real burden for the staff. So.
Yes, I'm sorry. Are we required by law to be a member of the Transportation Planning Organization? Okay. Or are we required by law to be a part of the Charlotte regions?
Yes.
Okay.
And we asked, who was it that spoke? I'm looking at Mama, he knows. Bjorn. We asked Bjorn if there was any other, and he was like, no, nobody else is going to take you because they don't want to, they have their pot of money. They don't want to add you into their pot. And really, even though all decisions aren't in Wesley Chapel, a lot of decisions do impact residents.
And the thing about it, it's driven by the census is going to change and potentially enlarge the Charlotte region. Because more of Union County has become more urbanized, is that criteria. So that census data will also affect boundaries.
Well, could it also have the same effect as what the district representation map has? And that would be, since the population growth has been so great in proper Charlotte, that condenses and we get encompassed by whatever the regional transportation organization is to the east of us?
No, there's a rural transportation planning organization. RPOs do very little in general. The access to funds, et cetera, is greatly constrained as compared to a metropolitan planning organization. So there was a bill that there wasn't going to be a new Charlotte-centric MPO. Would have been the federal government had been trying for a very long time to consolidate MPOs into larger groups, and theoretically by maybe next year, basically Rowan, Cabarrus, Charlotte, Rock Hill, Fort Mill, and Gaston, Lincoln, Cleveland theoretically should have been consolidated into a single regional metropolitan planning organization, but Congress, as they often do, protect the fiefdoms that have been around for a while and basically killed that. So the most likely change that you might see would be some expansion of the area covered by the Charlotte MPO into previously uncovered areas in the eastern part of Union County, and it probably would not expand anywhere else besides that. It could go into some, I don't think the northern part of Union County just hasn't grown enough to make it get up towards the Stanley County border, probably. But getting into Stanley County probably isn't going to happen, but basically blocked on the west by the Gaston County or Gastonia, then to the north by Rowan and Cabarrus. There could be some adjustments in boundaries, but it's unlikely at this point. What happens in Lancaster County could be interesting. They're part of they call it the Rock Hill Fort Mill Area Transportation Study, RFATS. Theoretically, Waxhaw is very tied into what's going on over there, so it's not out of the question. It happened, parts of Brunswick County are in the Myrtle Beach MPO. Something like that could eventually emerge. I don't know who knows what's going to happen with some of the changes around the edges, but as nestled as Wesley Chapel is and surrounded by the communities, I don't see any changes.
Thank you.
That takes us to the report of settlement of lawsuit against the Village by Selco Partnership, Verizon Wireless, relating to the property at 6719 Newtown Road. So, Keith, I'll defer to you. I don't know what I'm supposed to say here.
I think that's it.
That's all I'm saying.
You succeeded.
All right. So we have to make a motion to approve the settlement?
I had been told it had previously been voted on to approve the settlement.
In a closed session.
Let's vote to approve it in an open session, just to...
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the settlement of the lawsuit of the village with Selco Partnership.
Mm-hmm. Second. All in favor?
Who seconded it?
Lori.
Lori did. Okay, thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee update.
So we had a great steering committee meeting prior to the planning board meeting last month. We had lots of visitors actually towards the end of our steering committee meeting, as we usually don't. The things that we did during the meeting, we reviewed with the committee the compendium of comments and suggestions and ideas and visions for the future of Wesley Chapel that we received during our community conversations, in which we had 45 participants come and spend time with us here over a couple days in September. So we went through that with the committee. If anybody's interested in seeing that, we'd be happy to share that report with you. We presented some maps that we'd updated from previous discussions with the committee, particularly the school district information, and a couple others. We're still winding our way through the fire district information. And we also presented an initial kind of 30% draft of our development capacity analysis as well that we're still working on refining. Those are the main points. There will be another meeting prior to the planning board meeting this month, which will get into some discussion about visioning, prioritization of project, guiding principles essentially as we move forward based on some information we've looked at before. So, and we won't meet again until January, at which time we will have had the census, the full count information, demographic housing information is going to be coming out sometime in December from the Census Bureau for the 2020 census. And so we'll be using that time to perform the analysis and prepare the information for that to go along with the other background research that we've been doing. So it's all coming in. And things will move very quickly after that because we're supposed to be done in July. And July sounds like it's a lot farther away than it actually is. Having done this a few dozen times, the last part just kind of breezes through.
Any questions for Ron?
No, thank you.
That brings us to the Western Union Municipal Alliance update. We met in Weddington. Marvin is going to have a Marvin Day on May 21st. They're hoping to have their new town hall opened in December. They're also hoping to use their ARP funds for audiovisual equipment in their new town hall. Mineral Springs has no idea how they'll spend their money, nor does Weddington. There was some discussion. Marvin added cell phone towers to the agenda because they're also having some issues with a cell phone application for an unincorporated area right on their border that will impact their residents. We did have Jonathan Thomas from the Union County Planning Board come and talk about transition zones in the county 2050 plan. And some discussion about ETJ, but it was a good meeting. We're meeting again in November in Mineral Springs, but building some good relationships there, so that's nice. That's all. Any questions? So that will bring us to council comments before we go into closed session. Does anybody want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll just keep mine brief. Two things. I've taken it upon myself to try to become an expert on the American Rescue Plan policies. And the only thing that I have to say is, Cheryl, thank you so much for your diligence in keeping up with that, because it seems like I read two things and then right on the heels of that gets contradicted by three other things. So thank you so much for your diligence with that. And then secondly, with Lori, I'm approaching midterm with my service with Wesley Chapel. And I'd just like to say thank you for the council members and the acting mayor for us being able to work in harmony and in cooperation to continue to make this village an attractive place to live and raise a family. I know that we've had our disagreements, but I think throughout it all we have maintained a respect for each and every person. Thank you for that.
Been one of the easiest last 2 years that we've ever had.
Because David and I are such easy persons to get along. That would be some. I'll go next. So I would just like to say congratulations congratulations to Amanda and Mike for your new election, re-election, and welcome to the council for Deb. And just appreciate everyone who did go out and vote. It's very important to make sure we do that and have representation when we need. And I will say that to David's point, if we had all agreed on everything, this would have been extremely boring. But I do feel like there is a commonality of really trying to make sure we are doing the best things for the village for the long term and not just short term or just to be doing things. And so I do feel like that we look forward to, well, I look forward to 2 more effective years for the council to continue to make progress in the betterment on behalf of the village.
I already talked with Deb, though, when I got back this week, and I told her the same thing I always tell every politician when they get elected. Congratulations, and I'm sorry. Because it's a thankless job. It's great that you got elected, that your peers saw that you would be someone who would make a difference. But I'm sorry it's going to take you away from some of the other things. It's always a lot harder than you anticipate. And Amanda, you got kicked off the planning board, then you got elected to council, then mayor pro tem, then acting mayor, and now elected mayor. I don't know, people who know Wesley Chapel must be doing something right.
I will request my 19 write-ins and see how many of them say anybody but me.
And welcome to John, of course. John has worked tirelessly for, when did the park start?
About 12 years.
12 years. And the fact that we've now at least done somewhat of a good thing to start paying John for the work that he's done over the last 12 years. John, as far as I'm concerned, you take a union break every day and still get paid, because the amount that the village owes you specifically is immense. And I'm glad that we can finally put the tools in your hand, and at least you're not going to make a ton of money working for the village of Wesley Chapel. And of course, that's never been our goals from the beginning. But we should have done this a long time ago. And I'm glad we can at least give you some kind of recognition for all the hard work that you have done and will continue to do. So, and I know I don't have to turn around and watch John. Like, if we had hired some 20-year-old flunky to do this job that was going to require constant supervision, that would be almost more of a chore. But with John, he's already doing it, so we might as well start paying him. So, and that's it for me.
All right, well, thank you for coming. We will have an organizational meeting next Monday, December 6th, to swear in candidates. So if you would like to join us, we will have light refreshments afterwards. Thank you all for coming. We are going to go into closed session now. So if y'all want to leave, you're welcome to leave. And then we don't have to move. We request that you leave. Thank you for coming. And then we will, once y'all leave, we'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Shirts.
Sure. These are the documents for the framing.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I could get a copy of those. I don't have a copier at home. Later. I can just pick them up later.
Okay. Of both of them or just of this?
Well, both of them, so that I can report into the committee.
Okay.
But I'll come by and pick them up.
Okay. This is probably his personal Social Security number, so you may not want to be.
Okay, so just that one then. That's fine. You're right.
I do try to look out for people.
Quick question for you. First of all, thank you for getting this, all that information that I asked for.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. And we figured out that we're not going to do anything about lights because we got the lights that are in the plan. So. So when Keith comes to do his inspection or his walkthrough, do we have to pay him? Does EPCON have to pay him?
No,
Does
no.
the village pay him? Who pays him?
Well, we have a contract with the urban forester, and so he does things for us.
Oh, out of the village?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know, have you heard? He seemed to be a little evasive, Keith.
I know.
Different.
What?
He's different.
Yeah.
He's different, yeah.
Well,
He has a
He likes trees.
PhD
In trees.
tree stuff. So I mean, you got to be dedicated.
I mean, you're just asking, are you going to come do a walk or not, you know?
Right. Because for some reason, our grounds committee has asked to be a part of that walkthrough, and EPCON has pushed back on that.
I
don't know
emailed.
why. I don't know why.
We got at EPCON because Keith had emailed me about. I think he probably heard from y'all. So I was like, well,
I emailed Keith, and then he just kind of went to you. He kind of...
and so I would really like to do all this stuff all at one time because, like, Bonnie, some of the stuff is bonded. I think even the tree save is bonded.
Yeah, I think it is.
And so there's some stuff that the engineers need to do, and I guess some stuff that Keith needs to do.
I think the first stuff is Keith to determine whether or not trees are live or dead or going to stay alive or whatever. Right. Bonnie, that's not really her thing.
Right.
Except they do that. I mean, that's
sort of. But I think
the street trees are part of the.
I think with Bill Smith, it was more like he gives the okay, and then.
So I wanted to see when the developer was planning on finally getting all that stuff done, so it could all be done at one time. So not reducing bonds and then not reducing, so it could just be all done at one time. And they said they were getting there soon.
David's claiming that seat.
Yeah, I just don't understand
January,
why.
July,
I just don't understand why they would push back on having the homeowners involved in that. In any of that. No clue.
I'm sure that Keith will make sure that you all know when he's coming out there and your property, so you can walk around beside him if you want to.
Maintain 6 feet.
I don't think he's going to want to go out there with the developer to do it necessarily. I mean, he's going to go make his own.
Two quick requests for you. One is when you review the DOT drawings of 84, can you confirm to me that the crosswalk from Southbrook to Dogwood is included on the drawings?
I'll take a look.
I don't see any pedestrian pavement markings on the.
Yeah, I don't recall that. Yeah.
There should be, but they're not.
Can you leave me a copy somewhere of the revised maps for the other committee?
We don't have a hard copy. It's just an email.
No, for the steering committee, the revised steering
hard copy. All right, okay. Oh, they might actually be here.
He had to move.
I thought you were talking about the road map.
He thought you abandoned his seat. So I make a motion that we go into closed session for attorney advice